and welcome to this week's episode of The Insider, brought to you, as usual, by the delightful Vanishing Inc. My guest today is a magician, a mentalist, a creator, and currently, remarkably, supporting Take That on tour. Christian Grace, how are you this morning?
I am absolutely very well. Thank you so much for having me, Damien.
It's lovely to have you on. It's been a minute. Now, I have seen your posts on social, walking out to what I would estimate to be 20 or 30,000 people supporting Take That in Europe. How does it feel to walk out to that many people?
It's very exhilarating. It's definitely a very different experience that I'm used to, as opposed to performing close-up magic for a small group of people. And it's kind of hard after you come off stage to kind of settle back into the norm because of all this energy projected at you. So it's very amazing, and we're very grateful to have the spot. And we've enjoyed our leg of the tour in Ireland with them, so that was really, really fantastic.
This is not a music podcast; it is a magic podcast. So let's talk magic. You were on the show, as we've mentioned, quite a few years ago. What have you been up to?
Yeah. Oh my God. My life is very magic centric. I've been running my membership, Magic Monthly, which has been amazing.
And where can people find out more about that, Christian?
Well, it's Magic Monthly, Christian Grace. You could just type it into Google. It's on Gumroad. It's a place where I feature some of my best magic, and I teach. It's a subscription service, a very reasonable one, and yeah, it's kept me sort of sane for the last couple of years. So I have been developing and creating new magic, and the vision is still there to try and innovate within magic, and we're sort of getting a little bit closer to where we need to be with that. So I'm very happy to have this conversation and to highlight one of my favorite effects and creations that I'm most proud of.
Sure. Well, talking of creations that you're proud of, I guess the thing that's made the biggest splash of the last whatever is Enigma. And you have very lovingly let Vanishing Inc. be the only magic store to be able to sell it. So first of all, thank you for that privilege. Now, for anybody that has been hiding under let's talk about what it is, because it is an app, or it's classified as an app, but after I've had the chance to play around with it, I definitely describe it more as a system. How do you think that's fair, and how would you describe it in your words?
I think you've described it very well. It is a system. It's an ultra advanced filtering system based on a set of very simple rules. Secret information that we acquire from the spectator, we input secretly into the app, and there's many different ways to input that information, both that bring very little focus to the phone and some modes that don't even use the phone at all in terms of the perception of the audience, like voice input, where we can just speak and the phone will be listening and feeding us a secret crib of essentially the word they're thinking of eventually. Using this kind of, I would call it a system, a filtering system that is disguised as an app that mimics your interface, your natural phone. So, for example, this is the app itself. And
for audio listeners, Christian is holding up his phone.
Yes, that's right. As you can see, very simple layout, a perform button here. When we click the perform button, it's now running the app. So this particular mode is a secret mode where the phone's on the table and we're ready to go. I would describe it as an advanced filtering system.
What's the effect in one sentence?
The effect is that we seemingly ask for a freely thought of word that describes a physical thing they can imagine. And through a process of asking them to visualize each letter in the word and pretty much having them do this in silence, just with their imagination, we are able to decipher what that word is. Yeah. And reveal it to them, obviously.
You don't always have to use the app, though, do you? Because at the session 2 years ago, you did it on me, and Matt, who is the secret operations manager in the marketing department, and I were talking about the copy for the email and for the product page for when we have this on the site. And I said to him, you never had your phone in play when you did it on me. He was sceptical about that and said, well, maybe, old man, you didn't notice that the phone was in play. And I said, I'm pretty sure it wasn't in play. Were you using the phone when you did it on me?
So from memory, I don't think I was using the phone because this is a system and there's a routine specifically that I think I would have been performing at the session, which is a routine taught on the project called Bring Me Something. And this is where we ask the spectator to imagine going off and grabbing any object, big or small, and bringing it to us in real life. And of course, we're all magicians here, so I'll sort of add to the fact that by doing this, we're restricting them to something that can be held in their hands.
Right.
Now, within that realm, because when you perform it with the app, you're actually seeing the kind of you're seeing the outcomes when you're in a given branch of the performance. You're actually learning the outcomes, and also because we're collecting all this data from hundreds of magicians performing this effect, we know what words come up the most, what words never come up. And it's very easy once we have one particular element, which I had with you. I remember performing on you. You thought of the word light bulb.
I did. How did you?
Well,
that was 2 years ago, man. How do you remember what word I picked?
Yeah, it's one of those secret gifts I have. I just seem to remember irrelevant things. It's not irrelevant, but I mean, the
not
cards.
Important.
But the cards that people select within a routine. I'll remember what the card is. Yeah, I can't help it. I don't know. I don't intend to memorize anything. It just happens. So, but with that particular thing, there was one piece of information I had, and I just went down the route of picking the most obvious word in that realm. And when I had affirmations in the performance, I knew I didn't need to go to the phone because I could reveal it. And a lot of my friends who are performing this are starting to realize that certain words come up a lot more than others and tend to remember those things within a performance.
So did you take a bit of a punt?
No.
No, you knew.
I knew when I threw out.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I knew when I threw out one piece of information, namely the shape of the first letter. And when you beamed, I teach us on the project, certain techniques to, rather than throwing out questions and having them answer questions and getting yeses and nos, we're actually throwing out statements, or we're seemingly doing our own thought process as to what we think they might be thinking. And in doing so, we're paying attention to how they react. And therefore, we know how to go without them ever vocalizing yes or no. So, for example, literally with the word light bulb, because I was going to front end the performance with the possibility you were thinking of that word, I just brought your attention to the first letter and I drew an L in the air, and you just started laughing. And I knew then that it was light bulb based on the other factors within the method. Very simple method, by the way. I'm not trying to be cryptic, but essentially, and I think this is fair to give away in this kind of talk.
Okay. Thank you.
We're secretly turning a thought of word into a number, a very simple number.
Okay.
And that number will give us the object or thing that they're thinking of. So, broadly speaking, that is the method, as opposed to other methods in mentalism, like progressive anagrams, where we have to have a lot of memory work and we have to throw out lots of questions and get yeses and nos, and our acting has to be so on point in a progressive anagram because we've got to sort of go one step ahead, a bit like chess, to make it feel real and to make it feel plausible that we're really seeing information and picking up on it. We have to be so, know that progressive anagram backwards to front. Whereas with Enigma, it's a very simple, they think of a thing, you take them through this guided process, which is very quick, and then that gives you a secret number that you then use to divine or to filter to what their word is. So it's a very direct way, and it's a new way of doing it. And it's within our performance and within the subtleties that I teach on the project, whereby we can hide that. There's many techniques to hide that actual method, how we acquire the information, what kinds of things we can do in a performance. These sorts of things include dual reality, which I've built into the scripting and things like that. So interesting. It's a very interesting project. I'm very proud of this because it's a very new way to approach how to reveal a thought of word.
How did you come up with it?
So it all started with, and I talk about this on the project as well, but it all started, again, like most of the things that I create, it all starts with an idea that comes outside of magic. So I was just watching Netflix, and it started with me I put in a P, and obviously all the P films came up. I put an R and an E. And by the third letter, I had the film, and I thought, okay, well, this is normal, right? You search on Google, it's a normal thing that when you're putting in letters, it filters down to the very thing. And out of all those films, the most popular one, the most plausible one that the person might be thinking of is at the top, So I thought, oh, actually, okay, there's something here. I wonder if could be a system I could create that can quickly filter to a thought of word. And then I thought, well, it's a pretty terrible trick to ask someone to think of a word and give you the first three letters. So so it was then a question of, well, if it's not the letters themselves, maybe it's something else about the letters, like the different qualities or shapes of the letters. And then I'd stumbled on the main concept of vowels and consonants, and that's kind of where the whole thing kicked off. And I'll leave it there in terms of exploring the
Well,
exact
that's
method.
funny because last time you were on, we were talking about level one and how you came up with the idea of doing your sister's decking and
Yeah,
looking at the
well, I was
grain.
Yeah, it was literally a floorboards. We were laying the floorboards when renovating our flat, and some of them were this way, some of them were this way. And again, if those of you that know level one, if you take a floorboard and turn it on its side, you'll understand how that idea was sort of born in that way. But yeah, it's just weird. Ideas come from anywhere, and what really allows them to grow is when you act upon them and you don't just forget about them. You write them down and then you pursue them. And actually, just to follow on from that, that very night when I had the idea watching Netflix, it all happened very, very quickly. Believe it or not, I would say in about 20 minutes, I had the whole concept, just from that thing. What was hard though was staying up through the night. And in fact, I'll tell you what I did. I wrote down all the countries of the world, and I looked at my system with each word, and I found all the secret numbers that they could, and the possibilities that they sort of give birth to, and that's when I realized, oh my God, this works. I mean, once I had that, it was just
Yeah. Talking of apps and technology, before when you agreed to come back on the show, I was looking around the internets trying to read stuff about what people's opinions were of Enigma, and there were similar sort of questions were coming up that you weren't always on certain forums to answer.
okay.
So can I ask you those questions and we do it like rapid fire? Well, you can
Give it
take
a
as
go.
much time as you like. I don't care. Is
Yeah,
is it
sure.
really
So in terms of the performance, the way that we engineer how they think of a word, it's as open as this. Rather than, I'll answer this in two ways. One, I'll just do the opening
okay?
spiel for the main type of performance so they can see
Hmm.
how it's formed. So directly, no, it's not any word. It's within a category of a restriction.
Okay,
But that restriction is with the scripting, and the scripting doesn't feel like a restriction.
right.
And it goes like this. I say to someone, I want you to think of anything, literally something physical you can imagine. It could be big, small, it could be a man-made thing, like a calculator, for example, or a natural thing, like a waterfall, or a living thing, like a caterpillar or whatever, right? So literally anything you can describe as a word that you can comfortably spell, and we can go from there. So just take your time. Obviously, there's millions of things. And bear in mind, behind me, this is a painting, but you might see that as a poster or a picture. There's different words for different things as well. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this should be very interesting. And that's how I open the script. So I restrict them to a word that represents a physical thing. But by no means does that feel like
No, not
it's
even
not anywhere.
not
You know
even
what I mean?
remotely. Yeah, yeah.
So that's the kind of, to answer that question, if anyone's looking at this saying, oh, well, it's not any word, that's ridiculous, because the whole idea of a performer or a magician is to create a perception in the
Of
audience's
course, that's
mind.
our job, right?
And the perception that we leave them with is that they picked anything in the world.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. So no, it's not strictly methodologically any word, but yes, it's any word in the perception of the audience because of
Sure.
how we frame it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Perfectly.
Nice.
Because I'm 52 and obviously ancient, the idea of me doing memory work now is very, 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 very slim chance to none. So what you said about this turning the words into the numbers thing, how difficult is that? Can I learn it at my ripe
So
old age? And how long?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd say conceptually it takes 5 minutes to learn. And I'll just tell you exactly
Okay.
how and why that is. We are turning their word into a four-digit number. So if you can remember a four-digit number, then you can perform the effect. It's as simple as
I
that.
can remember a four-digit number.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
Remarkably. How long? There were some people going on about it taking ages to perform, but when you did it, now my memory could be wrong, so correct me on this. When you did it on me at the session, it felt like it took a couple of minutes. It felt like you said, think of an object, and I'm right, I think that you said that you can hold in your hand, and then we did some business, and then you said light bulb, and I ran away like a spectator in a L&L video, screaming like a schoolgirl. How long does the typical
Performance
performance
day.
take?
Yeah, it's not very long at all. I would say on average, with the routine that I do called touching the air, it takes about 3 minutes.
Right.
Obviously, that's the initial preamble where we set the
Mm-hmm.
scene, and then the method where we secretly gain knowledge of the secret number. And again, this is all part of the routining because we're framing the way that we get the information as the fact that we already know the information. The way the whole thing's constructed seems as though we actually know the information first, and we're only asking them to go through the process to check if we're correct with our
Right.
thoughts, you know. So it's kind of like this beautiful thing where whilst we gain information, we make it look like we know the information. And of course, that then rolls immediately quite quickly into the revelation, which then proves that we knew the information. So it makes total sense, comes full circle. Yeah, so an average performance takes about 3 minutes. Of course, with your presentation, you can make it longer. I could probably get it down to 2 minutes, really.
Sure. Sure. Are there performance restrictions?
Restrictions, yeah, I suppose I go through this with regards to picking the participant, choosing someone who
Can
I
spell.
mentioned this in someone who feels comfortable spelling. You see, what I say is I always ask. I say, do you feel comfortable spelling in general? And that's my question. And if they go, oh, not really, I'm dyslexic or something, I say, no, it's absolutely fine. Let's try
God.
this. Well, no, I actually still use Enigma. I
Oh,
go
okay.
into a mode within it called fallback mode. And this, by the way, can be performed in less than a minute. This is like you seemingly go to your phone, you search for something, you put the phone down. They then intuit what you're thinking of, or you can do it in reverse. So you're actually reading their mind. So you say, think of something, you search for it, you put it down, you say what you're thinking of. And of course, it shows a Google image of that thing. So even with people who struggle with spelling, you still can have whether you want to do that is up to you. I mean, it's a very simple question to ask if someone feels comfortable, and they don't know what to expect anyway.
No.
So if you do want to divert and go into something else entirely, then it's perfectly possible to do that.
But you've got the backup just in case. Now,
Absolutely.
there are certain.
Sorry, can I
Go
just
on.
go back
Of course
on
you
that?
can.
Because you
Yeah.
said, are there any restrictions?
Yeah.
So the first one is finding someone who feels comfortable spelling. Secondly, you want to find someone who's not like wasted or distracted, or, it's not the kind of thing that I would perform in a very loud environment where I'm going around quickly trying to perform to loads of different groups. It's the sort of thing when I have a group and I've been with them for about 5 minutes and I've already warmed up into it and people are very receptive to trying new things. It's the sort of instance where I'll then, supersede expectations and blow them away with something inexplicable. And to me, Enigma is that thing.
Yeah,
So
people often have one thing for a corporate event where the booker is going to see it, or for the top table at a wedding.
Oh,
They've got the one thing, and so this is your one thing.
this is it. This is it. This is it. Well, I've got a few things, to be honest, but this is one of them, and it's right up there. And to be honest, what I'm discovering is, and why I love it so much, is that it really does make a difference that the spectator thinks of something freely and we're able to show them what they're thinking of without them writing it down. That's the biggest step, I think, that this effect achieves, as opposed to lots of traditional mentalism methods where people are writing things down, impression devices,
Peak or
sense
terror.
tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, they're all great tools to have. And
Sure.
by me, for example, if someone says they are dyslexic, maybe you do go into a peak instead of going into this because you know you don't want them to feel uncomfortable spelling something. So there's many tools, but the one thing that makes Enigma stand out, and especially in terms of the reaction that it draws out of the spectator, is the fact that they are not telling anyone the word. They're not vocally saying anything out loud. You're claiming to see the shapes they're thinking of, and somehow you reveal that thing to them before they say anything. And that's so important because it's impossible for them. It's a self-serving method that proves the process that you claim you have by being able to see the letters and form that into a word and then show it to them.
And you're kind of interestingly telling the truth, really, about how you're doing it.
100%.
Which is really rare.
It is. And there's a lot of, like, in traditional mentalism now, like, in terms of not traditional mentalism, sorry, what Darren Brown, for example, brought to the table with his attitude on making things seem psychological, a certain process sometimes that people adopt to portray that character of trying to read someone, and get signals and cues. This is actually the method we are using for real to tell them what they're thinking of. So this couldn't feel more like the real deal when you're performing it. This is like you have the ability to tell them what they're thinking and read minds. And I just, it's a trick like no other, really. And I hate to call it a trick because it feels like actual magic when you're, performing on someone.
When you did it on me, man. Now, there are a lot of apps in the market that are complicated to learn, to set up, to perform with. Is this easy or accessible for somebody that thinks that app magic isn't for them? Do you know what I mean? Is it easy?
So. I think the method is easy to understand. So I think anyone can understand the method in, like I said, 5 minutes or so, right? Obviously, to put it into practice and to understand the app and to navigate through the app, you're going to have to learn how that works. What I will say is we've tried our very best to make it absolutely intuitive for anyone to learn, even if you're not familiar with using phones, by way of, not familiar using magic apps on a phone, is having very clear and engaging PDF instructions that people can read through and that at their own leisure and remind themselves of certain aspects. Everything's laid out with images and showing exactly where everything is and how everything works and the titles of those things as well. Because within Enigma, we have different modes. If you consider the filtering system having different ways to filter, those different ways have different names.
Sure.
So when you study it, you'll start to understand those different names. And of course, you'll get a better and deeper understanding of how to perform with Enigma. The instructional videos are there as well. There's about 3 hours of video tuition. And again, as with all my products, I have a Facebook page as well for people who need to reach out to the community, suggest ideas, share routines, any troubleshooting, any questions, concerns can be voiced there. And it's a wonderful community of people that are helping each other and kind of pushing it forward.
I do love that there's PDF stuff as well, because obviously watching the videos through the first time you're learning something is great. But if you then life gets in the way and you don't come back to it for a couple of months or whatever, kids, doesn't matter. Then to go back, I know I need to do this thing, but I can't remember how to quite get to that thing, and having to scrub through hours and hours of video to get the thing. Or when you've got PDFs, you can just scan and go, oh yeah, I need to go bim, 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 or whatever it is. So I applaud you for some written instructions in the day of video downloads.
Thanks so much.
Now, let's be real. This isn't cheap. And Enigma can be considered quite a substantial investment for, let's say, the average magician. Now, you and I both know that the value is exponentially larger than the price of the app. But what would you say to somebody that's a bit on the fence because of the price point?
Yeah, so from my perspective, obviously, I think that's a very conservative price. The effect is definitely worth more, in my opinion. A lot of magicians who have bought it and own it and use it have told me unequivocally I need to put the price up. So I suppose it's just it depends on your perspective. If generally, tight for money, I would never buy any type of magic if more essential things are needed in life. But I would say it's an investment worth it, because it's something that becomes an everyday carry. It's on your phone. Once you learn to use the tool, you have it there any moment's notice. And I think that's kind of different from all these other magic where you requires you to have a prop on you, because everyone naturally carries their phone. It's inherently there. So I think the investment's kind of to be able to have this skill and build this skill where you can do something very impossible for someone and make this kind of, well, real magic really in terms of how it feels.
Yeah.
What we're trying to go for is a genuine feeling of wonder and surprise and impossibility, and that's what this achieves. So
And how can you put a price on that, Christian Grace?
well, exactly. This is kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah.
This is kind of where I was going with it. It's I've spent a lot more on other things within magic.
We all
that
have.
have given me much less.
Yes.
And to
indeed
be
nothing in some instances.
and to be frank, like I put a lot of investment into this thing. It's not something that I've built and it exists. I'm currly continuing to maintain it. We're adding new features.
That was my next question. What's next?
Hooray! See, Enigma. A little bit of mind reading for you there. No, but yeah, it's an amazing system that is building. As the community uses it, we understand. Like I say, we get the best market research into the words that people think of and people don't think of, and what words come up the most in this region of the world. And the whole thing is quite remarkable in terms of how we're kind of building this understanding really of our spectators, and I think that's quite a unique position to be in with this. So yeah, it's a high price, but it's worth every penny. I can guarantee it.
Where do you stand when it comes to because you mentioned Darren, where do you stand when it comes to the divide? Because this is so powerful. Nothing was written down. You told me I was thinking of light bulb. Where do you stand personally? Sorry, a bit of tautology there, but where do you stand personally when it comes to the divide between making them think that you've got real powers and debunking mind reading as fake? Like Darren's disclaimer of NLP and magic and misdirection and all of that stuff. Do you think we should admit that we're cheating, or do you like to give people a little bit of...
No, I think I don't prefer when I perform not to explain anything. I just do it,
Right.
and you let the audience, understand and decide on what that is, that interaction is. I actually, I don't like the idea of trying to pretend that we can do things that we can't do, to be honest. That's why when I perform this, I'm literally telling them that I'm trying to pick up on the shapes of the letters they're seeing. And in a way, that's kind of truthful because that's part of the method. So I don't feel too shy to kind of go into it with that kind of attitude. I'm equally not bothered with those that want to take it in a different route, and ask someone to think of an object that means something to a family member. That's or whatever. It depends on your style, really. But I don't see any harm in. I think inherently when we perform magic, it should be expected in this day and age that we are not superheroes, doing impossible things that can't be explained. The whole joy of magic is that there is a method, and someone can feel that there's something going on, but they don't know what it is, and it feels like magic because whatever they're experiencing that they can't explain is some kind of knowledge that feels greater and is bigger than what they understand or have tapped into. That provokes wonder and intrigue and stuff. So I just like to keep it real and just show them my skill, so to speak,
and let them decide what they want to decide.
Yeah, and my love for that thing whilst I'm doing it, and my excitement that I bring.
It's
to
visceral.
the process is what they feel and I feel, and it's kind of like an infinite loop of joy, like performing a trick like
infinite
this.
loop of joy. How lovely!
Yeah, it is. That's how I feel when I do most magic. To be honest.
I know, and it's infectious. It is infectious, and then when you giving them that, and then they're giving you that back again, infinite loop of joy. I love it. That's the title of your book. Now, I'd be interested to see whether you think this, because you are such a nice person and do like giving that joy and all of that stuff. But for American listeners, if you're new to the show, there was a television program called Room 101 based on the Orwellian thing of something being banned from the world and put into Room 101 in 1984. It was a very popular television program in the UK. What about magic or mentalism would you put into Room 101, Christian Grace?
Can I just clarify something? Are we putting it into the room because we want to banish it, or
Yes,
is it?
it's gone.
Okay.
It's gone from
Okay.
the whole
We're
world
not
of magic.
trying to. It's not so precious that we don't want anyone else.
No,
Okay.
it's gone. It is removed from the world of magic or mentalism forever.
Right. Okay. So, at first, the first thought I have is that I don't have the right to put anything in that room because
I'm giving
I
you the
realise
right.
we're all so different, and who am I to deprive someone of sponge magic or whatever it is? That being said, there is definitely I think any magic that involves live animals, I really think that's kind of
Done.
we should move on from that now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
just
think,
you know,
yeah.
it's not to be virtuous. I'm not necessarily, you know, I'm just acknowledging that, you know, a dove in a sack in someone's pocket it's just not where they want to be, I'm sure. You know what I mean? It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just kind of done. Yeah, if I could do that, it'd be
Okay.
magic with animals.
And then conversely, what do you find, aside from your latest release, Enigma, available at vanishingmagic.com, what is exciting about magical mentalism now for you? What is...
To be honest, I'm working really hard on future systems for Enigma. My whole head is in mentalism at the moment.
Right.
For those of you that follow along, I love card magic, and it's kind of it's my day-to-day thing to bring joy. But in terms of actually what I'm working on and what's pushing me or pulling me are these new systems that I'm expanding upon in ways that I don't think I even knew I could go, you know. So there's a massive, vast future for this. It's just the beginning. We've just touched the surface, honestly. People will see in time, and I'm very excited to get to a point where I can share all of this work. It's really exciting, honestly. I can't begin to tell you.
Now,
Yeah.
we are well over time, and we always finish the show with 4 quickfire questions. They're the same quickfire questions. I skimmed through the last time you were on, and I have written down your answers from 3 or 4 years ago, and I want to see whether anything's changed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, it obviously is going to change because we change.
Well, we do change. What's your favourite pizza topping?
Truffle. I like margarita with a bit of truffle oil on it, I reckon.
Okay, but now, is there anything unusual about the margarita?
No. What do you mean? It's just hasn't got anything on it, you mean?
No, it's
just cheese.
Last time, it was vegan cheese margarita with truffle oil.
Okay, interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, I sometimes I swap it out with vegan cheese. I think at the time,
you were a bit more
Bird in Hand
vegan.
was my local. Yeah. Well, I'm not strictly anything, to be honest, when it comes to food labeling. I just
Eat what you want to eat. Yeah.
Yeah, as and when I feel. Yeah, absolutely.
Favourite movie?
Oh my God. I wonder what I said. I haven't really watched that
You
much
cheated
TV.
a bit. You said one that you enjoyed that you'd watched recently. It wasn't like a favourite. It wasn't The Godfather or Apocalypse Now or whatever.
No, I can't wait to hear what I said. I might rewatch it. My favourite film? I don't really have a favourite film.
No, it's okay. You're allowed not to have one. That can be your answer. Your cop-out answer last time was I, Origin.
Oh, that was a wicked film. Yeah.
Maybe you should rewatch it.
Though.
No.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a favourite, you haven't got a favourite. Favourite personal people that make music?
My friend Archie. That would be. He's the best songwriter I've ever heard of, seen.
And who would you rather fight? One massive Andy or 100 tiny Joshuas?
100 tiny Joshuas.
Yeah, that's what you had before, and you had no hesitation whatsoever. You were straight on the 100 tiny Joshuas, and you said that you had a whole process, and you were going to plan to put them in boxes in order to manage them.
Oh my God!
I don't know. It was probably, was it COVID when we did it? It might have been. Oh, who knows what was going on in the world there? Christian Grace, thank you incredibly, very, very detailed much for giving us so much of your time today. I hugely appreciate it. Your app is available now on vanishinginkmagic.com, and people should go and buy it. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Enjoy the rest of the tour, and lovely to see you.
Thank you so much, Damien. All the best. Bye, everyone.